What's up, everybody? This is Vinny Chenz, and this is the first episode of the 7 Out podcast. Got together with my good friend Joe the other night in his garage to put together our first episode here. Hope you all enjoy. We start off talking a little bit about the Super Bowl coming up on Sunday between the Patriots and the Rams. Did a little bit of tales from the craps table, from my recent trip to Ocean in Atlantic City. And then talked about a deep run I had at the Borgata opener event where I was able to place ninth place out of over 5,000 runners. Hope you all enjoy. If you have any questions, any feedback, please do get in touch with us. We greatly appreciate it. The best way to reach us is at 7outpod@gmail.com. Again, that's 7outpod@gmail.com. Thanks and enjoy.
I feel very lucky right now.
We believe in you, Frank.
All right.
Whatever you do, don't roll a 7!
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Why would you say that?
I didn't know!
You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
My name is Vinny, and this is Joe.
Hey, guys.
And this is the first episode of the 7 Out podcast. Really going to be about gambling, going to be about gluttony, and going to be about, living life to excess. A lot of podcasts out there that I currently listen to and, that are within the gambling world, focus a lot on strategy. Some of them focus a lot on news and history of, say, Vegas or new restaurants opening. Not to say we won't have a little bit about that, but my favorite podcast is really what I aim to not necessarily mirror, but where I get some inspiration from is Mark and Dr. Mike's You Can Bet on That. And these, if you have not heard them, you go out there, please listen to them. They have a wonderful, casual, recreationally focused gambling podcast that just has them every week going to the casino, rolling some dice, picking up their gifts, and just telling us stories, making us laugh, telling us about the wins, the losses, and I could listen to that for hours. So I really hope that I can do, hopefully not do a disservice to them or the industry, but just talking a little bit about, my history in gambling for the past 20 plus years, the constant trips that I take to the casino, the different restaurants we try in different casinos, whether in the Northeast here in Atlantic City or Parks in Philadelphia or Foxwoods in Connecticut, or the trips that we take out in Vegas. I think I have a lot of crazy stories to tell you about from the past, and hope that we have some exciting things coming up in the future. All right, before we get in the action, I assume we should probably tell you all a little bit more about ourselves. My name is Vinny. I'm a 36-year-old married man from Long Island, whose wife allows him to go to the casino 2-3 times a month, usually for the weekend, sometimes with her, sometimes with my friends, sometimes alone. I would say that I'm probably a gambler first, a poker player second, but you can usually see me playing one of the tournaments out in Atlantic City. Parks is one of my favorite spots to play. I'm not so much of a cash game player, but really kind of playing poker, using the money I've been fortunate enough to win there over the past decade or so to fuel my gambling habit. I have a full-time job. I'm kind of a sales manager for a financial services recruitment company, and luckily my boss there allows me to also go travel to Vegas for a couple of weeks every year to take part in the World Series of Poker. And across the table from me tonight is my good friend from high school, Joe.
Hey, guys. My name's Joe. I'm a big fat dude from Long Island, and I would gamble every penny that I had to my name if I did not have 2 young kids and a wife and a family that I have to provide for. I grew up gambling. I love to gamble on everything possible, whether it's fantasy sports, board games.
And you get to the casino a lot.
Once in a while.
I mean, you go with the wife to Atlantic City during the week. I'm pretty jealous about that.
I'll go to Atlantic City with my wife and kids, and we'll get a few hours to gamble at night. Go to a local slot parlor from time to time with her or my buddies.
Our local slot parlor here is something called Jake's. If you're from Long Island, you may know what Jake's is. We have Empire City, we have Aqueduct out there. I would say that it's not the safest place if you go out west on the island to gamble. We don't have table games, so everything is electronic. Electronic craps, electronic roulette. So Joe and I go do something we like to call bubs. Joe, why don't you tell them what bubs is all about?
Bubble craps.
Bubble craps.
So, it's a real quick-paced craps game with a bubble where dice bounce. And we typically lose. One time I won about $1,000, and ever since then I've given it all back. Plus 10 times.
I've gone with you 10 times. I don't think we've ever come close to winning when I was there. Not to say the bubble craps machine is cheating, but something about losing money sitting around a electronic craps table is just not satisfying. So
it's not at all.
No, it's
for me, unfortunately, it's one of my only options.
The other thing you do that I don't do, you've said multiple times that you're up late at night in bed on your OTB app watching horse races across the country, and that might be the most degenerate thing I've ever heard.
I refuse to confirm that statement of yours, but I do enjoy betting on horses. My family has been doing it my whole life. We used to spend Thanksgiving at Belmont Racetrack every year until I was about 15, and that's what we do for every family holiday: is bet horses and play cards, play Pokino, left, right, center.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I myself, very familiar with Belmont as well. My 18th birthday, I don't know if you know this, Joe, was actually at Belmont. I remember being a kid and telling my parents the only thing I wanted was to go to Belmont, have the family there.
This is at 18?
Yeah, 18, because we were allowed to obviously go to the track and gamble at 18 here in New York. And I wanted a bucket of original recipe fried chicken. and a $100 voucher, and I got that, and I'll remember my birthday forever. So, moving on, how could we have a gambling podcast and not talk about the Super Bowl, which is coming up this Sunday? Not exactly sure, when we're going to get this first podcast out, but I think, Joe, we have to talk about the Super Bowl a little bit, right?
For sure. As a diehard Jets fan, I hope Brady loses. I respect him. He's amazing. If he was on any other team outside of the AFC East, I'd probably love him, just like I like Drew Brees and a bunch of these other guys. But
think about how crazy it must be. We're in New York, right? How crazy if we just grew up a little further north in Boston. For the past 20 years, they've been so damn dominant. This is his 9th appearance, I think, in a Super Bowl, and they never knew what it was like to have a crappy team. And
so I work with a lot of people who are in the Boston area.
Mm-hmm.
Most of those people up there who are between 20-something and 40, all they know is winning, and it's disgusting. And it's not just the Pats; it's all sports up there.
Yeah, you're right. They had the Red Sox,
I
right?
cannot wait for them to start losing.
But what if they don't? what if they just roll over and
I want to live if that's how this is going to be?
I have to think that part of the problem is obviously the division. I mean, the Jets, the Dolphins, the Bills have not done anything to make their teams better over the past 20 years, I feel like. And there's been no competition, and the Patriots roll over. And look, I at least grew up, being a Cowboy fan, had some success as a kid, the Cowboys in the 90s. It was great. Since then, it's been hell. But I can't imagine how you must feel being a Jets fan.
It's the worst.
Yeah.
And like I said, I have to respect him, but I don't have to like him.
But will you bet him this week is the big question. I mean, they opened up as it looks like a 1.5 point favorite. Within hours, it went down to being a 2.5 point. They were 1.5 point underdog. The Rams were a favorite, and they actually went to -2.5 now for the Patriots. I doubt it's going to touch 3. It might touch 3, but I mean, will you bet with Brady?
I'll bet Brady in some prop bets, but on Monkey Knife Fight, that's I'm staying away from the overall game.
You mentioned Monkey Knife Fight. I know it's something we did a little bit during the season. For those who don't know, a good way to potentially bet the game without betting the game is something called monkeyknifefight.com. Joe, I know you had a lot of success with that. I did not. So tell me a little bit more about that.
I mainly made like $5 or $10 bets at the most, and they have all these different options. You can pick overs, unders.
It's player based, like statistics based.
Kind of like it reminds me a lot of DFS, but at the same time gives you different action that you can't get from DFS.
Yeah, I remember there's like certain situations it'll say like who's got more yards? Is it going to be Brady? Is it going to be Goff? Or Brady -10 or -20, and then it'll say something about the running backs and the receivers. And if you get a certain amount of these situations right in a row, you get 3, 4, 5, 10 times your bet back, which is pretty interesting.
So I got really lucky. I hit a bunch of 5 out of 5 over unders with a couple $5 bets, a couple $10 bets, but I hit a whole bunch in like 3 weeks in a row.
And did they actually pay you out too?
Oh yeah, got paid out. Money's in hand.
Money's in the bank.
But I mean, for a $50 investment, I turned it into about $800,
which is
for me is amazing.
That's great for anyone. I mean, geez. I mean, I I had no DFS luck, no Monkey Knife Fight luck at all. But yeah, Monkey Knife Fight, something to check out. Not that they're sponsoring us or anything, but I would check it out if I were you guys.
That's all I'm really going to be doing for this game. That and Super Bowl boxes.
Super Bowl boxes, yeah, and that's usually the way I I bet the Super Bowl. I mean, I had a ton of bets going into the playoffs. I think I told you. I mean, I had the Colts at 100-1, which would have paid off good money. You know, I'm talking about 10, 15 grand. I had the Chiefs at 28-1 from the beginning of the season, you know, for $300-400. I had my Cowboys, which made it to the playoffs, you know, for a ton of money. If the Cowboys ever win the Super Bowl, you can bet I'm going to, you know, cash in a pretty big ticket. I've lost a ton of money the past 20 years trying to get them there, but if that ever happens, we'll definitely be cashing in. But yeah, because all those teams lost, and now it's the Rams and the Patriots at the Super Bowl, I don't really think I want to bet Brady. I don't like rooting for him, but I will continue to do boxes. For those who don't know, and I'm sure you do know, boxes is a great way to get in on the action. It just really depends on the team total, right? You know, how many points they have at the end of the first quarter, halftime, the final. Something I've been doing for years. There was, you know, this brings up a good story that I made sure I wanted to talk about here on the first podcast we had. There was a box that Joe did with myself and a bunch of other guys. It was a $4,000 box, which seems ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. I bought $100 worth of that box.
But it was good. I mean, I had a healthy portion of it. I'm going to say a little bit more than half of it. But it was great because I was able to sell out a couple of $100 to each of my friends. It made us all root for the same thing. And this is one of those score change boxes. For those who don't know, a score change box means you're going to get a certain amount of money if your numbers hit at any point during the game. Okay, so, you know, normally it's at halftime, it's first quarter, it's the final. You want your numbers to match up. In a score change box, you know, you can have 6-0. The Patriots roll down the field. They score a quick touchdown. You get the score change because it becomes 6-0. They kick the extra point, and the guy with 7-0 now gets some money. So in this particular box, when we did the $4,000 box, was Super Bowl 50, so 2016.
Yeah.
Who was playing there? I think it was
Denver
I know, and the Panthers.
Right.
Okay, it was when Manning right before he retired. So in this $4,000 box, it was $12,000 per score change, and then the rest went to whoever got the final. Now, for those who don't remember, this Super Bowl was very big on defense. I mean, in just kind of remembering back, I don't think either quarterback had more than one touchdown. I remember that Manning only threw the ball 23 times. Cam had 1 or 2 picks. I know the Panthers had 4 turnovers. It was a defensive battle that the Broncos were dominating, you know, Newton and the Panthers. At the end of the game, there was about 3 minutes left, okay? And the Broncos had marched down the field. They scored the touchdown, and it was 22-10. I had 2-0, okay? So I had the Broncos with 2 and the Panthers with 0. So at this point, I hit the score change. Me and Joe are celebrating, you know, we're all happy. We got the money in hand. But if the game ended with 2-0, we'd be splitting up about $350,000 to $400,000 in cash. And this isn't a check, you know. This isn't something Joe will get taxed on, right?
Right.
This is money in a backpack being handed to us if this game would have ended that way. I had gone that weekend, before I get into the outcome for those who don't remember, I had gone that weekend to watch the game at Atlantic City. Joe, have you ever been to Atlantic City for one of the Super Bowls before?
No, never for the Super Bowl.
So you may know that they have these viewing parties, right? So not that you have to be anyone special to get into these viewing parties. If you have a card, usually they invite you. But it's a room where there's free food, there's free drinks. And me and my cousin and some of my close friends at the time went to Harrah's, right? So we went to Harrah's. They had this area where these big TVs were up. You had tables. And there was, you know, a couple hundred people in the room. And they give you burgers, hot dogs, and beers and everything like that. And you watch the game. So everyone's cheering for things each way. Sports betting was not legal in New Jersey at the time like it is now. But, you know, you can tell some people still had action on the game. And I remember being in the corner of that big room. So try to imagine a big warehouse of a room, tables everywhere. People are obviously a little bit intoxicated, yelling about the outcome of the game. And I watched as the Broncos went down the field. They scored that touchdown, and you knew they were going for 2 because they wanted to get up 14 points, right? It was 22-10. They go up by 2, get the 2-point conversion. They'll be up 2 full touchdowns with 3 minutes left in the game. Their defense is dominating.
So I'm sure there was 3 minutes left. I thought it was...
No, it was 3 minutes. I know. The reason why is because I believe there was probably little to no timeouts left for the Panthers. The Broncos were dominating the whole game defensively, right. And you knew if the Panthers had
they get this, and they miss, get it, whatever, game's over.
Well, because the Panthers couldn't go for a field goal, right? They have to go for the touchdown. They're down by 2 scores. The Broncos only had 1 touchdown the whole game. Yeah, they ended up not scoring again, the Panthers anyway. Not to say that's exactly what would have happened, but anyway, the feeling as I walked away into the corner of the room, my legs, I remember, were shaking. This was a lot of money. And, I wish that it was possible for me to say, okay, who can I find out? Who has 2-0 here and who has 4-0 here? I want to call that guy and tell him, let's split this, But you can't do that, obviously, because you don't know who has the other numbers. And I remember I watched as the Broncos, as Manning got the snap. He went back to throw, which was only his 23rd time all game, and he hits Benny Fowler in the end zone for that 2-point conversion. 7 out. My legs buckled. I couldn't walk for a while.
I was upset because I lost out on $6,000 or whatever it was.
Yeah, no, it would have been good money.
I couldn't imagine that feeling you had with that.
You didn't think all game you could possibly even get there, right? I didn't think it was going to be a possibility. Who has 2-0? 2-0 is not going to hit. This is a low-scoring game. What are the chances of 2-0 hitting?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And then it was the perfect scenario that kind of lined up for itself. I did not win. I know a police officer I heard from the city area won, so good for him. I hope he still has some of that money.
Yeah, that's a big freaking score, man.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is too, 2 years before, a friend of mine, not saying any names here, actually won that final. I mean, he split it with half, but they paid for their house with this money. I mean, they went to a bar, they met up, they got a backpack full of cash. Security, they got a guy with a gun to come with them, obviously. You want to protect this kind of thing. But imagine that, that's tax-free money right there.
It's like winning double.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, I don't know how you even kind of get that money, how they even showed that they were buying the house. They might have some money under the mattress still. Because you can't just all of a sudden deposit $200,000 in your bank.
Right.
But it was a great time. And since then, unfortunately, the $4,000 box dissolved. Sad story there. We won't get into too much detail, but the guy who ran it had a little bit of a gambling problem, as you might expect. They stopped running the pool. So now, I still got a couple of $500 boxes, got some good numbers this year, have $1,000 box, but nothing that's going to live up to that hype.
You have any good numbers this year?
It's weird. I got a couple of, usually I feel like you have the worst numbers, and I'm like, okay, this is only going to work out if the final goes 38-26 or something weird like that. Right. But I actually have 0-0, I have 7-7, and 4-4. Which I think, to me, those are great numbers. So I'm pretty happy. You'll see next podcast if we actually hit any of these things.
I, on the other hand, have $200 boxes, and I have 1-1 and 2-2. So I have
Let's
zero
think.
Expectations for
but
anything.
It should be a high-scoring game, right? So, I mean, that's at least how you get those weird numbers where it could be 31-21 final, or something like that.
I have no faith.
But you're not winning the first quarter. It's just not going to happen.
I never win.
Don't say that. We won that score change box. We just didn't win as much as we could have won, but we won.
True.
We did win. Besides that, not going to be betting the Patriots, just going to be doing the boxes. Let us know if you have any Super Bowl stories out there, guys. If you like, you can hit us up at 7outpod@gmail.com. I love to hear gambling stories. If you had a lot of money riding on a team or not, want to hear about that. If you had any success in some of these boxes, love to hear about that. Or maybe if you have just some other way that, you gamble on sports here in the playoffs. I mean, besides us doing our fantasy league, which we do every year, there's not too much really kind of playoff pools that we really can get into.
The one couple years we did the playoff fantasy challenge on NFL.
That's one that's like 2 times a player, 3 times a player.
That wasn't too fun, and that ended pretty quickly. Yeah,
I know like the NFFC is like a National Fantasy Football Championship, has some big high roller thing you do $200-300 for, and you got to pick players, but you're in a pool of thousands of people. It just doesn't seem possible, to win something like that. Curious if anyone else has any other ideas on there and how you can gamble on the playoffs. As mentioned a little bit earlier, we can probably do a whole episode on fantasy sports and our fantasy league that we've gone on for years, but we won't get into that now. So, all right. But before we move on to the next topic, just one more thing I want to talk about. Something experienced a couple weeks ago during the playoffs. A lot of times we were happy enough or lucky enough to go to the sports book at Ocean, which is my favorite sports book, and we'll get into more detail about that, for a lot of the playoff games, a lot of the season. But there was, I think it was the divisional round. I went to a bar with my cousin, my good friend Anthony, and he had brought this acquaintance, is a good way to say it. It's a guy I'd met a couple of times before. Nice guy. He played softball with us growing up and everything, and he was at the bar, and the games were on, and it was at the bar that I have these $500 boxes. And underneath the $500 boxes, there was a $100 box, and it wasn't all filled out yet. So we're talking a little bit about it. My cousin's thinking about maybe getting a box or two, And this guy sits down next to me. I'm not very personable. I don't love people. You'll learn that as we go through this podcast more. If you want to talk gambling, that's good. My close friend's been friends with you guys for a long time, but I'm not big with small talk. I'm not big with strangers. This guy sits down next to me at the bar, and you can tell he was kind of fishing for some information about, so I heard you made money playing poker, or I heard you had a score in a tournament before. Just kind of asked me questions I really didn't want to answer. He then turns around and asks me, these boxes, you got the boxes? And I said, yeah, there's a couple $500 boxes we have here, me and Anthony doing them. He's like, yeah, you think I should get a box? And I said, yeah, if you want to get a box, get a box. He's like, yeah, there's a couple spots left. I'm thinking about it. So I see him get up. He walks over to the box. He's looking. There's maybe 5 or 6 spaces left, Comes back to his bar, gets a drink. And you see he goes back and forth. Had to be 3 or 4 times. Comes back down. I'm like, so why don't you just get a box? He's like, yeah, I'm really thinking I got to start gambling more. You guys are always gambling, you're making money. And I'm like, no, we don't always make money, man. But yeah, sometimes we get lucky and we win. He's like, yeah, I really want to start gambling. He goes, what do you think I should gamble on? So I'm like, I'm sitting in my head. I'm like, how do I answer this question? Like, what do you say? Guys, like, what do I think I should gamble on? I'm like, what does that even mean?
This is your nightmare.
This is my nightmare. You're right. I hate this. But I'm trying to be nice. It's a nice guy. We're drinking during the day. I'm trying to watch the damn game. I'm like, I don't know, man. He's like, should I learn how to play poker? And I'm like, no, you can't just learn how to play now. I'm like, you're 30-something? Come on, man. I'm like, no, I wouldn't play poker. I told him. I'm like, do you like sports? He's like, yeah, I like sports. I'm like, so why don't you bet some sports? He goes, yeah, I know a lot about a lot of hockey and stuff. I'm like, yeah, well, why don't you just do a box? He's like, I would. He goes, I'm like, have you done boxes before? He says, yeah. Okay, so I assume this guy knows what he's talking about enough. But after the 5th time going back and forth to the boxes and him coming back to the bar and not buying one, I finally said, what's the deal here? Do you want to get a box or not? He's like, yeah, but I don't think I want to get, 8-8 or, 6-2. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, the only boxes that are left are like, the 88th box and the 62nd box. I'm like, no, man. I'm like, obviously, Joe, this guy never did boxes before. Yeah. He thinks those numbers are the numbers you get. So I told him, no, man, what are you talking about? I'm like, that box don't matter. It doesn't mean anything. You draw the numbers after. And for those who don't know, I don't mean to be offensive towards you, but the boxes, they pull the numbers at before the game time.
Well, anybody listening to this
should know
what Super Bowl box is.
I hope you do. Yeah. But if you don't know what a Super Bowl box is, and this guy's pretending like he doesn't. So I finally explained to him. I said, no, the bar pulls the numbers, man. He goes, oh, I get it. He goes, so we don't have to even watch the game? The bar knows who wins? I'm like, oh my God, I'm embarrassed to be next to you right now. I'm like, who are you?
It's really bad.
It's bad. So finally we explained to him, no, it doesn't matter. This get pulled out. So that was one question, okay? Now, an hour later, he comes back up to me after he finally gets the box, right? He comes back up to me and he goes, I'm thinking maybe I should start doing some sports. I'm like, yeah, you said you're NHL. He's like, yeah, I know basketball too. He goes, what team gets the most points in basketball?
You can't make this up.
I'm like, what do you mean, what team gets the most points? He's like, what team gets the most points every night? I'm like, no, it's each game. So anyway, I try to be nice with this guy, and I don't mean to make fun of him. He's probably not going to listen to this podcast.
Hopefully he's not.
Yeah, hopefully. I hope I never see him again. And I'm an asshole, okay? And I don't want to deal with this kind of stuff. But it was hilarious. I hope the guy wins his first box. He gets hooked on gambling, and maybe he smartens up a little bit. But anyway, moving on to the next topic. So although we do go play bubs, as we said at Jake's, which is, I believe, what Jake's 58 is called, because it's exit 58. Going to Aqueduct occasionally. The number one spot I think you can say we both gamble at would be Atlantic City. We're on Long Island, 3-hour drive, 2.5-hour drive, depends on the traffic on the Belt Parkway. Jump on the Garden State, get down to Atlantic City. I know most recently, Joe, you went with your wife recently to resorts, right?
Yeah, so me, my wife, my 2 kids, and my parents, and my brother and his wife.
I forgot about that, yeah.
We actually planned a trip where we went to this place called Storybook Land, which is in Egg Township Harbor, about 20 minutes from Atlantic City. We spent a day there. They had this big Christmas like festival of lights thing. Santa was there. My kids loved it.
So Storybook Land is north of Atlantic City? That closer to New York?
Yeah, it's only about 20 minutes north of Atlantic City.
And it's a good place for kids, you're saying?
Yeah, it's like a mini amusement park for kids under 7.
See, it's funny because as a young kid, we went to Atlantic City probably twice a month with my grandparents, and we'll get into more detail about that. But I don't think we ever went to Storybook Land.
Neither did we. I mean, I went out when my parents were younger. We never did anything other than just go to
Going
Atlantic
right to
City.
the damn
Walk on
casino.
a boardwalk, whatever. So we went to Storybook Land, spent a day there, and then we headed over to resorts. I've been going to resorts since I'm 21. For whatever reason, that's the casino we picked, and they've been good to me ever since. Even where I had gaps of 2 years and I wasn't going, they still would hook me up with free rooms, free food, and I know it's not as updated and flashy as some of these other new casinos, but
Look,
I like that.
I don't think Resorts gets enough credit. I mean, Resorts opened up in like 76, if I'm right. And it was the first casino I went to, too, when I was 21. As a kid, and again, we'll get into more detail about this. I know we have a lot of stories, you and I, about when we went to the casino and what we did as a kid. But my parents have been going there since day one when it opened. My grandparents, my uncle, my aunt, they would go there. They'd take us as kids there. They treat us well. They treated us well forever. I mean, up until I started going to probably Borgata when I was maybe 29, I was all about resorts. They'd send limos to pick me up. They give you free food. And when they made that rendezvous tower, which I think is still actually pretty nice, those bathrooms are big. That place was nice, man. I like that a lot.
I mean, every time we go, we get a big ass room with like double bathrooms, couch. It's something I never got at any of the other casinos we stayed.
Yeah.
We jumped around Tropicana when I was in my early 20s. Borgata more recently, but still Resorts is.
And they updated it. They made that food court recently,
food
right?
court's
They
really
changed the
nice.
whole vibe there. They have
They
that.
did the Margaritaville.
Yeah, and the Land Sharks right across the way, right? Across the boardwalk.
Draft book. The
sports book.
sports book they just made is
Is
really
that FanDuel or DraftKings? One of them owns that.
It's FanDuel.
FanDuel.
It might be DraftKings.
Yeah, either way. One of
Whatever
them.
it is,
One of them owns it.
It's
Yeah.
really nice. And they got the restaurant on the boardwalk too, which what's that called?
Land Shark's across the way. Now, Land Shark, I mean, from the times I'd gone in the summer, Land Shark has a nice little private beach area. It's a great outdoor seating area. I love Land Shark. I mean, I think that area right there, with resorts and Taj, I think that's one of my favorite places to be if I'm going to be on the beach in Atlantic City.
For sure, and we just love walking on the boardwalk, going to all the doll stores. When we have my kids with us, they love it too.
Yeah.
But
And they have good restaurants. I mean, Resorts has Gallagher Steakhouse, which to me is phenomenal. Every time I've been there, I like it. I think we've talked about this recently, you and I, Joe, but we have to make a point to get to Capriccio. Capriccio Italian restaurant in Resorts is, in my opinion, if you're going to go to an Italian restaurant in a casino in Atlantic City, Capriccio is the place to go. It's beautiful. The ceiling is gorgeous. I mean, on a nice sunny day, overlooking the ocean with that ceiling, there's nowhere better, in my opinion, to be eating. And they got that brunch, which people can't talk enough about. I mean, it's $50, $60 or something like that, but it is the best brunch I've been to in my life.
I'm going to be honest with you. I've never been to either of those. Typically, at the end of my trip, or I'm trying to spend as little as much as
Got that
possible
food court
on
money.
and just trying to gamble every penny I can.
Well, look, next time we go, we're going to go to Capriccio.
Okay.
However, I will say that outside of Capriccio, we've tried to, a couple times, arrange a trip to the restaurant that you've spoken a lot highly about, the Italian place outside of the casinos. What's it called?
Chef Vola's.
Chef Vola's. And you've been there before, right?
I went once.
Okay.
It's off the boardwalk right before Tropicana.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it's awesome.
Awesome.
It's like a house. It's a house, and you can eat on the porch out in front or in the basement.
I'm embarrassed I haven't been there before. Going to Atlantic City over 400 times probably in my life. I don't understand how I've never been to Chef Vola's. I never knew about it up until about a year or two ago when you told me about it. Probably because I never leave the damn casino. I mean, I know there's good restaurants outside of the casino. I hear about Gilchrist. I hear about Doc's. I hear about all this stuff. And I'm sure it's good. It's just if I can get a free meal, I hardly ever leave the casino. But Vola's is worth it, apparently.
I mean, this place is expensive. It's cash only, but it's one of the best Italian meals I've ever had.
And it's like old school Italian. It's like saucy,
Super old
cheesy
school.
Italian.
Yeah. And you're literally in a basement with like 7-foot high ceilings.
I like that.
It's a very cool place.
Now, we had a reservation set up to go to Vola's. It was supposed to be me, Joe, my friend Dan, our friend Steve. We had a whole trip planned out. We were going to watch some football on Sunday. We had a reservation for Chef Vola's, which I had to get 2 months in advance. But I don't think we made it.
We did not.
And why didn't we make it?
It was taken from me. My
Who took it from us?
my 3-year-old son came down with pneumonia, and that pretty much ended my Atlantic City trip with the boys.
If nothing else, I hope this podcast works because in 10 years, I want him to listen to this first episode and know he ruined my weekend. Thank you, Cole.
I'm sorry, man.
But anyway, let's go back to resorts. I know you said that you went there. You go midweek a lot with your wife. They take care of you. What'd you play while you were there?
So once we got our kids to bed, my wife went down for a few hours. She played some slots. She max bets everything. She lost everything real quick.
I like it.
Thankfully, my mother came up, watched the kids while they were sleeping, and me, my wife, my brother, and his wife got to go down and gamble. And played some slots. We were up and down. I played blackjack for about an hour. I got slaughtered. I went to the craps table and got my ass kicked. After about 15 minutes, I lost like $300. Went back to some slots again, and I said to my brother, I said, I'm gonna go play craps one more time before we go up. I bought in for $200. It was only me at the table. I rolled by myself and walked away with about $1,000, I think.
There we go.
I had like $15 on all hardways for the dealers. I hit them a bunch of times.
That's the best feeling right there.
If I was really betting hard, I could have walked away with a lot more money. But I was playing scared, I guess.
And you said you were rolling alone. You were the only one at the table.
Rolling alone.
How do you like that? Because I used to hate it. I used to, and now, and we'll get into this again. I have a lot of issues with people at the craps table.
Vin fights people.
I am not a confrontation. I did mention before I'm an asshole, and that's definitely true. It doesn't come out any louder than at the craps table, and it's weird. It's not that I'm a confrontational person, but when you do not have craps etiquette, it makes me more angry than if you came up and slapped me in the face. Like, it's just wrong. It's wrong.
Speaking of etiquette at the craps table, why don't you tell them about
the recent trip?
Tales from the craps table.
So I've had my two most recent trips to Atlantic City. One was completely poker based, which I'll get into in more detail. But the last casual trip I had was around the New Year. I went to Ocean. Okay, now I was a Borgata guy for a long time, and we'll get into reasons why I switched over to Ocean. But my host there was nice enough to take care of me and my wife. Went ahead and got a room for my aunt and uncle, who like to get down to Atlantic City whenever they can. Got a room for my mom. He really took care of us. If you need a good host, feel free to email us at 7outpod@gmail.com. I'll tell you his name, but he takes good care of us. I can get into a lot more detail about how bad the trip started, but I think I was down like $3,500 in the first 4 hours before my mom and my aunt even got there. And that's embarrassing. I was trying to take it nice and easy, go with my wife, play some slot machines, and the craps table ate me up. The Borgata table ate me up. It's real hard to sit next to your wife playing slot machines, happy that she's winning $25, $30 when you're down a couple grand. And more importantly, when you sit next to her just feeding hundreds into the slot machine because you're trying to waste time, have a good time with her, make sure she's having fun, but really you just want to get back to that damn craps table and try to get your money back. But the story that you're bringing up, which I think is great, fast forward maybe 2-3 nights, we were in Atlantic City for a while. That third night, I was down a lot more than $3,500, I would say. And I'm at the craps table. I walk up to the Ocean $25 craps table. I get a marker, and there's a roll it's happening as I'm getting the marker. Now, I'm never a guy that's going to go ahead and throw money down on the table. Okay, if you're listening to this, if you're going to take one thing away from this damn podcast, if there's a roll going on at the craps table, do not throw your money in the middle of the table. It's just wrong. You wait until someone either sevens out or you wait until the point has already been hit. That's just the right way to do it. And, everyone can agree at that table. Not that I believe in superstition, not that I believe that the seven's going to come out because you throw your money down. It's just selfish. It's making everybody wait while they count your damn money. So anyway, the pit boss tries to give my money. I tell him, no, hold on. Okay, he goes on. The roll continues. 5 minutes passes. 10 minutes passes. 15 minutes passes. This lady next to me, nice old lady. You can tell she came from money. She had jewelry all over her fingers. She had a couple grand in front of the table. She was making some good coin. And the pit boss, again, tries giving me my money. I'm like, no, I don't want to ruin this. I don't want to ruin it. He goes, are you sure you could be making all this money? I'm like, no, I'm not going to step in the middle of this. She turns over to me, and I swear this is the first time this ever happened. She looks at me, she tries to give me a $100 chip and says, I never seen someone with such good craps etiquette before, thank you. And I was like, oh, I felt so validated in that moment of my life.
That made your day, made your week.
It made my year. I mean, just that someone recognized that, look, I'm okay sacrificing this win. You keep rolling, lady. You keep doing your thing.
Well, didn't it end up paying off for you?
Well, yeah, and this obviously doesn't always happen. There's a lot more times I'm going to double down and go home real broke. After she rolled, it was my turn to roll. I get my marker. I went and rolled for probably a good 45 to 50 minutes. I mean, I usually open up the craps table, $25 on the line. I like to try to max out my odds. However, Ocean has 10 times odds, so I'm not going to always go max out 10 times. I'll do 3, 4, 5 times odds behind. Usually play 4, 6, 8, and 10. Not a comeback guy, really more the place bet guy, and do the hard ways. That's typically how I'll start. So it rolls, typically around $200, $250 a roll or so. But it was just hitting. I mean, I had to hit 4 or 5 points. The guy next to me went and hit 4 or 5 points. And then after that, the lady that was on the other side of the table, she rolled for a long time. And I remember my uncle came. He was watching, the Oklahoma City game in the sports book. And he came over. He wanted to smoke a cigar with me. He saw how much money I had in front of me. He just kind of backed off and said, I'll meet you over in the sports book. Do what you got to do. And that roll continued for a long time. So I made back just about everything I was down, which was amazing.
That's really amazing, dude.
Yeah, it's even more amazing because Ocean doesn't have any of those bonus bets. If you guys are familiar and if you listen to these podcasts, you heard people talking about them. They have the fire bets, which, people get 1,001 on some of these shots. They have the small, and the tall bets, which pay off, 35 to 1, 150 to 1. I love these types of bets, but Ocean does not have them. So to get these big scores, you really need these huge rolls, and you need to be, as Joe said before, you need to be maxing out your odds. You need to keep upping that bet, pressing. And because of that, and maybe it was karma, maybe it was my etiquette, but I was happy to say that next morning I was able to leave, with all my money back.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
You deserved it.
No, I don't deserve it.
If you don't mind, I'd like to tell a quick etiquette story from your bachelor party a couple of years ago.
Please, which one is? I don't remember that. I do remember
this. We went to the house in
this.
Pennsylvania for a few days, and we went to one of the casinos. Do you remember which casino that was?
It was Mount Airy. It was Mount Airy because it was up on the Delaware Water Gap.
Yeah, that's
2015. We're looking at here, I think.
So a bunch of us take a ride over there, and we all get to a craps table, which is very rare to have 10 of us at a table together. It was probably about 10 of us, right?
There was. I felt bad because there was like 15 or 16 guys with us, and they all couldn't go. But yeah, I think we got at least 9 to 10 guys around the table.
So I honestly don't even remember if we did good or bad.
Well, we were teaching our friends to play, I remember, because not all knew how, right?
But the thing that sticks out in my mind was Vin. I think Vin was rolling, and he was having a somewhat decent roll, and some guy next to us was complaining that he wasn't paid $25 on some shitty bet that he had out. And Vin, you could see Vin getting furious
because he was yelling. I remember this.
He stopped the whole game.
Yeah.
We had a good roll going. So at a certain point, after like he was talking really loud and pretty much cursing this guy out to us, Vin finally turns and throws a $100 chip at him and says, "Take your money and get the fuck out of here."
And I feel horrible that you're saying this. Like I don't think it was me, even though I know it was me, because.
But in that moment, like I don't really see Vin get worked up, and in that moment, with this etiquette at the craps table, it was like someone I've never seen before, and I loved it. It
made me very angry.
And he didn't leave, right? I mean, he took your 100.
No, he took the 100. He actually got mad, but he apologized later. I remember to us because first of all, you're at a table with 8 or 9 guys, but he was just so loud and annoying.
The worst part was that the game stopped, and we had to wait.
We're going to get into a lot more stories. I've had a lot of bad situations and run-ins at the craps table. Some good, some bad. But yeah, that's not one of my proudest moments. I wish I could blame it on alcohol, but I wasn't even drinking that night. That was bad.
He's very serious about his craps etiquette.
Yeah, I remember Jeff, a good friend Jeff, who has a podcast as well, the Nearly Coherent podcast. Little plug there for you, Jeff. I remember this is the first time I played craps with him, and he said that it was the most professional he's ever seen me. How serious I took the game. I don't know why. I shouldn't. It's a game.
You're in the element. That's it.
I feel more comfortable there than I do anywhere in the world. Craps, which is sad. That's so sad. But anyway. So let's go back to the Ocean. We talked a little bit of Ocean. We talked about our resorts. We can elaborate on this for hours. There's going to be a lot more content.
Sure we will.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot more AC content, right? But yeah, thanks for bringing up that wonderful shining moment of my history.
You got it.
What else have we got going on here? So I know I just said that my last 2 trips, one was casual, which was that one with my wife and my uncle and my mom, my aunt. The most recent trip was actually to go down for the WPT series at Borgata. I know I mentioned a little bit earlier in the pod, I'm a gambler first, poker player second, but I've been playing poker a very long time. I mean, we'll get into detail about how I kind of grew up, how I learned the game. I'm definitely a tournament player more than a cash game player. I love tournament poker. I love massive fields. I love the thrill of the final table. Nothing has matched that. I've been chasing that dragon. Every time I get to a final table, it's the new and best moment of my poker career, you can say. And this Borgata series that just took place was one of the the best and most disappointing tournament runs of my career. I've had a couple of close to six-figure scores. Had one really nice six-figure plus score. Have a couple Borgata trophies, which again, if you're in the poker world, probably doesn't mean much to you. A lot of guys have these things, but from the outside looking in, I've had a pretty good run here, in the past few years with tournament poker. And this Borgata opener, they call it, was a $2 million guaranteed event, which means the prize pool is $2 million at least. It's a $600 buy-in, which means they have to get, 3,000 plus runners to make sure they at least get their money back. And there's multiple flights. I believe it started on, a Tuesday or a Wednesday, midweek, which is usually tough for me. I hate these series that start midweek, which I'll get into more detail with, I'm sure. But I was able to take off Thursday, Friday from work, get that there on Thursday for the last flight. Paid $600 for my entry. This tournament ended up having over 5,000 people, which, if anyone thinks poker is dead, it's more alive than it's been in the past 10 years.
Field, man.
It's crazy. And right now, as we're doing this, the Borgata main event, which is $3,500, I believe, the WPT, that got over 1,300 runners, I think. They had a $5 million prize pool for this. I mean, it's insane that it's getting this good, and it's great. And I think the Northeast and the Southeast do these types of massive fields better than anyone in the country. In my opinion, better than even the West Coast, where the World Series is. And I love these type of events. I'm happy we're here. But anyway, I went out for this flight. It was a 3-day tournament. The first day, got there around 10 a.m., played to about maybe 9, 10 o'clock that night. Bagged a pretty average stack from what I remember. Nothing crazy, but happy to make it through to day two. Probably about 20-25% left of the field. Day two, come back. Got down in the money. Always a great feeling when you get in the money. It's not like it's a huge pay bump. You make $600 or something like that. That's fine. But the run continued. Still pretty average stack. Nothing crazy. It definitely wasn't my best showing in terms of all those hand histories I can tell you. And I'm not going to get the strategy of poker or anything like that right now. But I love updating the guys in the group chats and stuff that we have, telling them, making a deep run here. Only 100-something people left. We have a good chance here. It's $420,000 for first, Joe.
Yeah, we love getting the updates from Vin, and we'll follow along on the Borgata Poker blog.
Yeah.
And if I remember, you really didn't have any big hands. You were kind of just hanging in
the whole time, right? Yeah. And look, if there's one thing I don't like to... I know I'm not the best poker player in the world, right? I'll never be the best poker player in the world. But one thing I think I'm pretty good at is... I call it like bum hunting, or at least making sure I get the most chips I can out of the weakest players at the table, and really surviving in these types of tournaments. I'm not typically the guy who has the biggest chip stack going out of day one or day two, but yeah, I survive. I hang in, pick my spots, and I love it. I love it. So even with day three, there was 31 left coming back for day three, and that was a big day three. 31 out of 5,100 people. So my literally the series right before, I think I ended up getting 20th in this similar type of event. There was only like 3,000 people. It wasn't a huge score, and I was hoping to do better than that. But I was probably in the bottom 3 or 4 people with 31 left. Anyway, as the day kind of progressed, I remember I got lucky a couple of times, but one, if you actually look it up, you'll see in the blog. Maybe like 19 or so left. I got my ace king in against aces, which, you get up from the table when you see that. That's a pretty horrible spot to be in. It was ace king suited versus aces. I start to get up. Flop comes down 10, 3, 4 or something like that. Now you're really getting up. You're walking out the door. Okay, made a nice run. Got 18th place. Is what it is. We get a king on the turn and a king on the river, which doesn't happen.
That's crazy.
I mean, yeah, you hit straights, you hit flushes, the types of things. To get the turn and river kings there, it was devastating for the gentleman who was in the 2 seat there. But, I got a nice big double up. Was able to get down to the final table, the final 10, the unofficial final table, which, now we're talking about some good money here, $400,000 for first would by far be my biggest score. Unfortunately, I'm going to say I 7'd out, Joe.
That's a 7 out. Yeah, you definitely did.
I definitely did. I mean, I didn't get 10th, but I definitely got 9th. To those listening, this was probably one of the more disappointing endings to a tournament for me. Not that it was a bad hand or anything like that. It's just that this final table to me was amateurs. I'm an amateur, but these were real amateurs.
You were devastated.
I was devastated. I was. This table, I don't think any of the guys had many earnings. I mean, the guy next to me, God bless him, older gentleman, ended up actually winning this damn thing, chopping it, I believe, for $370,000 or so. He I think the last tournament he cashed in was like 2009. He had like $7,000 in earnings. Real nice guy. Kept telling everyone, let's have fun, everyone. Let's have a good time. You know, he was there to have a good time. His wife came down from Connecticut, was railing him, sitting on the side there, railing him the whole tournament. They were so happy to be there. He was the nicest guy, by far the least amount of experience at the table, and he found a way to take it down. So, good for him. I hope that money, he didn't make it seem like that money was going to change his life by any means. $370,000 changes a lot of people's lives. It seemed like he had some money. He didn't really care so much about that. But he was a nice guy. Couldn't have happened to a better guy. But it was just so devastating because, if I got some chips in that tournament, and I had a pretty good stack when it got down to 10-handed. 3 hands went the wrong way. Not going to get the details here. It doesn't matter. But, going out now, bound out ninth in that tournament is something that's going to bother me for a real long time.
He was so upset that he immediately got in his car.
Yeah.
Drove home, going probably 100 miles an hour.
It was bad, yeah.
To play Settlers of Catan with me and a few of our friends.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's nothing more I wanted at that point in time was to get home, to get high with my friends. I wanted to smoke my vape pen, and I wanted to play board games. I mean, that's just what I wanted to do. And, yeah, it was pouring out. I told my wife what happened.
It was a real mope fest.
I feel bad. I'm sorry. And, there's nothing worse. And, if you listen to this, you may not, it's going to make me sound like even more of an asshole, which happens. But telling people how disappointed you are with getting ninth and getting the payout that you got, no one really understands it unless you play cards. You don't make these final tables that often, guys. You don't play 50, 100 player fields very often. You don't get down to the bottom 10 with $400,000 up first very often. So when you get there and you feel like you can capitalize and you don't, no matter how lucky you got to get there, it hurts and it stings, and it no amount of money is going to help that. So yeah, I did drive home. I stopped at my home. I saw my wife. She had some friends over. Didn't want to sit there and ruin that little get together. So I went and hung out and played Settlers of Catan, which we can probably do a whole episode on that if you want it. But
unfortunately, that's the truth.
But if you don't play Settlers of Catan, you should play Settlers of Catan. It's a great game. But anyway, that was my most recent trip. And again, real sad right now, the WPT Borgata Maine is going on. This is another tournament that happens midweek. Can't take off work for these things, Joe. I wish I could. I mean, you're talking about $700,000 for first in this tournament going on right now. I would love to be there. I would love to play. Have a lot of acquaintances who are playing, who are actually still in the tournament, about 40 left right now. Wish them the best of luck.
They don't have late flights like you did for this last one?
No. I mean, the flights for these is usually one flight a day, and it's 2 or 3 days. It's Sunday and Monday, the 2 flights, I believe right. It is, right? So, I mean, what am I going to do? Take off work on a Monday, hopefully make day 2 to Tuesday. Not even in the money yet. I'd take 2 days off. I'd have to take off 3-4 days, and it's just...
That's a tough schedule.
It is. I try to save my days up. That way I can go to some of these events, right? And then I can go to Vegas for 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks maybe in the summer. And there's just not enough time off. I still like to go away with the wife, other things that are non-gambling related, and you can't do all this stuff. So I hate when there's such a huge tournament so close to home that I can't play in. Now, not to get too much into poker, but, we do have the Parks events coming up. I know our good friend Steve and our good friend Dan's going to go accompany me to the 300 event, which is coming up first week of February, I think, at Parks. They do it right. I mean, they have a Saturday-Sunday series, which is, Saturday-Sunday is day 1 and then day 2. If you make day 3 on Monday, you take off work because you're on a day 3. That's worth taking off for day 3s. So we'll be at Parks probably next time we do a podcast, I'm thinking. All right, Joe, how much time are we at here, Joe?
45 minutes or so?
Okay. I think we looked to go about a half hour our first episode. Looks like we overshot that a little bit. But really, just wanted to kind of give you guys a taste of what we'll be talking about on the 7 Out podcast. A little bit of poker, a little bit of craps, a little bit of any kind of gambling that we do between episodes. Have a lot of history, have a lot of stories left to tell you guys. We'd love to hear any kind of feedback that you do have. Look, I know we're kind of new at this. We have to still perfect the process. But we're going to keep trying to put these out every couple of weeks with some new information. Feel free to email us at 7outpod@gmail.com.
Is it 7?
That you know what? That's
say,
look, we didn't think about this. It is 7 spelled out. So SEVEN out OUT pod POD @gmail.com. We have 7 Out Pod on Twitter. We have @7outpod, I think it is. I'm old. I don't know social media so well. But you can find us if you look for us on Instagram, on Twitter. We're going to work on a little website if we get some traction here. But again, we'd really love to hear back from anyone who wants us to elaborate on anything at all. If you have any questions, doesn't matter how stupid, I'll be happy to answer them. Eventually, we're going to get a little hotline you can call into as well. But look, if you're listening to this, thank you. Thank you for listening this far. If you actually got through the whole 45 minutes. And we look forward to your feedback. What do you think, Joe?
That's it.
That's it? All right, guys, I'm going to leave you with one last line here. Before every poker tournament I played in college, every time I went to the casino, which was Turning Stone Casino, as I went to college up in Albany, my good friend Harsha would always say to me, take what you can and give nothing back. Have a good night, guys.
Whatever you do, don't roll a 7!